Welcome to the latest episode of It's Not What You Think. The fact that it's been 10 years since the last episode should not deter you from watching this one. On the contrary, it can't possibly be any more exciting. We have with us in the newish studios of Gateway Media a candidate for Congress for Congressional District 1, Jerome Whalen, who's seated to my left.
What's going on?
What's going on? Here we are. We both look very comfortable, don't we? In fact, we're totally terrified. So, Jeremy is running for Richard Neal's seat. Congressman Neal has held it for a long time, and Jeremy is a challenger. And I guess I would start off, Jeremy, by just asking, why the heck would you want to do such a thing as run for office?
It's a question I get a lot.
Okay.
And I think that it goes back to my upbringing, it goes back to my career as an educator, and it's instilled in just me being from Western Massachusetts. And so to back up a little bit, I grew up in Belchertown, which is about an hour and a half from here, and Western Mass. And growing up there, it was a small community. It was the 90s, and it was the intersection of a rural farming community and suburban sprawl. And both of my parents are educators. We settled down in Belchertown, and I always found myself on the progressive side of the political spectrum. But I would play baseball with, kids on the other side of the spectrum. And, when you see people at the grocery store, or you are experiencing life in a small town, it's people over politics every day. And I think that level of connectedness is something that we've gotten away from, and I want to get that back. I've been there, and I've seen how we can do things together. And then after that, I went to UMass, and I got my first of 3 degrees. I got a bachelor's in history. And it was 2006, and I was in the classroom, and the war on terror is going on, and I'm in a lecture about the Vietnam War, and the professor was talking about how Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense, was getting briefed on the plane. Sir, the Vietnam War couldn't be going any worse. The casualties are mounting. We need to have answers. Got off the plane, went to the press. He said the Vietnam War couldn't be going any better. And I think that we're reliving that. And the old adage that if you're not learning from history, you're doomed to repeat it, we're repeating that history over and over again. And we need to understand it, address it, and find solutions to it. And then we're in North Adams community, in the community television center. Yeah. I went into community media myself, and that taught me a couple of things. It taught me how to tell stories, tell real stories. I'm a stats and numbers and data guy, but at the end of the day, it's the stories that we hear about the individuals behind those numbers that are really the things that inspire and motivate us, and hopefully facilitate that change that we need. And I was the first in and last out of City Hall chambers, and so I saw the hard work being done by individuals on the City Council and the school committee, and that's why I'm really interested in connecting the municipal, state, and federal level. And so after this, I'm going to be meeting with some city councilors in town and talking and discussing things, everything ranging from flock cameras and kind of surveillance, government surveillance, to data centers. I mean, all of these things that are happening on the local level have repercussions on the national level because we're experiencing them throughout the country. And after that, I went off and I became a teacher, high school teacher, for the last 11 years. And it's an incredible privilege. You get to see a perspective from the kind of top, and you survey hundreds of students a day and their parents and the other educators around you. And at the same time, just like my growing up in Belchertown, there's a person behind every single one of those classes and numbers right there. And so really engaging people on the individual level and giving them their time, understanding their stories, celebrating it. And to answer the why, I found myself in the classroom in 2016 after Trump was elected, and I had to go in and essentially give a pep talk to my students and say, I apologize on behalf of adults for framing the world like this. I don't get political in the classroom. I'm a journalism teacher. I want you to think for yourself. But the way in which we're having this discourse, the way in which we're treating each other, the way in which adults are modeling that behavior, it's certainly not what I teach you. But we're going to get through this. We're going to work hard, and I got your back, and I know that you have mine. And at the time, they got it. And I got a lot of calls from home thanking me, and students sending me messages. And it was a good kind of moment of relief. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, how the heck did we get here, and who allowed this to happen? But time marches on. I was getting my master's at the time, and I had to protect my community, my family, and my classroom. And I said, the powers that be are going to solve this. Flash forward to 2024. Now I'm at the tail end of my doctorate. And now we have Trump elected again, but this time we're faced with not the incompetencies of the presidency, but a concerted effort with Project 2025. And we're not seeing a revolving door of individuals. We're seeing the Stephen Millers of the world that are going to rubber stamp anything that he wants. I went in the classroom with that in mind, and I gave that same pep talk, but this time there were shrugs of shoulders because we've normalized all this. And that's dangerous. It's dangerous for our local communities. It's dangerous for our country. And so I raised my hand. And the why is that we need more individuals that are public servants rather than career politicians. The individual that I'm going against has been there for 37 years, and I'm 39 years old. And percentage-wise, he's one of the top recipients of corporate money. So the things that we need in society, Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, to abolish ICE, these are things that, because of the corporate infiltration of our campaign finance system, we are told that we can't have, or we have to temper our expectations. But I think coming in with no strings attached is the why, and it's what we need right now to actually thrive in Western and Central Massachusetts.
And you said you'd always found yourself on the progressive side of local politics. Yep. Can you define progressive? You hear this term sent around a lot. What the heck does it mean to me?
My definition of progressive is practical. It's the things that you need for a functioning society. It's the thing that all other developed countries have as well. So what are we talking about? Single payer healthcare system, universal healthcare. That's experienced throughout the world, and it's not, no one bats an eye at it. And so getting the greed and bloat out of our system, we're told that we can't because the current congressman takes tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars from United Healthcare, from Pfizer and the likes. The Green New Deal, when we talk about environmentalism, the current congressman is the only individual in the 9 congressional delegates that did not co-sponsor the Green New Deal. And when you look at it, he also wouldn't sign up a pledge to not take money from fossil fuel executives. And so all of these things, when I say progressive is practical, these are things that are going to be shifting fundamentally a reprioritization of funds in congressional expenditures on the national level from wasteful wars and $1 billion a day to destroy human lives over into investments in our communities and investments locally. That's what I always say. When we talk about education and we talk about paying teachers more, I want to take those federal dollars and infuse them into municipal budgets. Why? Because when it hits the state in Beacon Hill, it stays in the east. And we are repeatedly looked over in Western and Central Massachusetts. So progressive is practical. It's the things that we need, but we're told we can't because of the corporate infiltration of our political finance system.
So you're suggesting that the progressive is a worldwide event, a worldwide reality.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worldwide, and when you sit down and you talk about it without any what I call the third rail rhetoric, it makes a lot of sense. I sit at the VFW, it's a bar in Belchertown, and I'm sitting next to a guy in camo, and I go, hey, you know when you cut your leg on the tractor and you had to go to the hospital and that ambulance ride and that stitches cost you about $3,000, $4,000? How did it cost $3,000, $4,000? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Well, if you look at the greed and bloat that's built into the system and that unitemized bill that you get, it's all factored into this. Wouldn't it be better if it was all streamlined? There weren't all of these multiple corporations that you needed to interface that could say yes and no to all of these things, and we just had one streamlined system? Yeah. And it would save $1 trillion a year in the latest national analysis for universal health care? Yeah. It starts to make sense when you start to unravel and talk and have those discussions. And that's what we do. We go door to door. We go to events. We see people in person. The current congressman hasn't had a town hall in person since 2017. And when you have those conversations, it diffuses the politics and the rhetoric that stops us from talking and interacting and discussing, and it makes sense to everyone involved.
You know, on the point of town halls, I read somewhere that Mr. Neal tends to avoid them because he says it, quote unquote, brings out the screamers. I don't know if you've heard that quote.
When you're percentage-wise one of the top recipients of corporate money and you're never around and you don't answer any of your constituents' emails, you're going to get screamed at, and you should get screamed at.
That's what they're screaming about, in other words. Like, where have you been for years?
And what are you doing to seriously solve these problems? One of the things that he has championed is the Affordable Care Act. And then the next thing out of my mouth is healthcare affordable? Is it actually working? I think it's a Band-Aid on a system that needs a complete overhaul. And Medicare for All is that overhaul. And so when you are not actually meeting individuals in the community, you're going to harbor frustrations from them. You have to meet people. When I win the primary, the next thing I'm going to do is go to not just Democratic individuals, but Republican town committees and city committees as well, because it's important to represent everybody. And having those tough conversations, I do that all the time. I sit down with my friend who's the chair of a Republican town committee in Western Mass, and we talk about gun control, and we talk about abortion, and we talk about all of these hard things. But you know what we do? We sit there and discuss it, and we have a respect for each other. And if we can lower the temperature and have those conversations, that's how we get our country back on track.
You think it's possible eventually to have these conversations across the board with lots of people effectively and to change the tone of our politics?
Yeah, I think you need to do this in small batches, because what we've done as a campaign is we go to multiple events a day. When we look at different issues or concerns, what we're doing is we're talking to the stakeholders within those communities. The minute it hits a national level, you start to get the bots, you start to get the trolls. And you can't have that dialogue. It becomes toxic. But if you can sit down with people and show that you care, and show quite literally and figuratively that you show up and you're with them, that goes a long way. I had individuals, I was coming through, I think it was Chester, and I was delivering lawn signs. I had seen individuals in Russell at the Westfield River canoe race. I was coming back down the mountain, and there was individuals that were sitting there having beers in their driveway. I had a little bit of time. I stopped in. They saw my Toyota van. They were like, "Hey, Toyota van, what are you running for?" I go, "United States Congress, Democratic primary." They go, because some of them were individuals that aligned with Trump. And now everything's going to be politics. Next thing I said was, "But we're not here for politics. Can I have a beer?" And we sat there for 45 minutes drinking a beer and talking about my Toyota truck. And there was a little bit politics adjacent conversation. Oh, how many miles does it get to the gallon? Oh, 18 to 22. Yeah, gas prices are crazy, right? And all of these little things that are interwoven in the everyday conversations, but have important concerns about what's happening on the national stage. By the end of that conversation, 2 of the 4 guys took my lawn signs. One of them said he was taking out his Trump sign in his garage and putting out mine. Because showing up matters, having those conversations matter, how you actually enter that without any animosity, without any preconceived notions or judgments. It really is important. And making it that old Tip O'Neill adage, all politics is local. And that appreciation that stems from the locality and being there, that's something that, like I said, diffuses some of the political tension and actually gets to the problem solving.
So I'm left wondering how similar your interest in various issues might be to Mr. Neal's.
Yeah.
And I read on a website yesterday, I'm not going to tell you what website, this quote: "I know the middle class needs help. Donald Trump gave billions in tax cuts to the very wealthy. That's why I'm taking on Trump, fighting for middle class tax cuts, investing in our communities, ending the tariffs that raise your prices, and opposing reckless wars that threaten our security and our economy."
He takes tens of thousands of dollars from Walmart. He takes, if you go down the line and you look at tariffs, I'm just using that as an example for tariffs.
Yeah.
It's doublespeak. Every single time it's doublespeak. You cannot be an advocate for the things that we're talking about in the working and middle class. You can't talk about lowering utility rates when you take money from Eversource and National Grid. You can't talk about rent control or the mortgage crisis and housing that we're in when you're taking one of your largest donors is Blackstone, the world's largest landlord. You can't fight for Medicare for all when you're or capping drug prescriptions when you're taking money from United Health and Pfizer. It's just impossible.
Why is it impossible?
Because it tempers your expectations, and the people that are in your Rolodex are the people that that bend your ear. And if you look at, for instance, the League of Conservation Voters, he has a good record there.
Yes, he does.
One of the things I say is he's the only one to not co-sponsor the Green New Deal. And on top of that, he also refused to sign a pledge to not take money from fossil fuel execs. It's one thing to vote. It's another thing to lead. And leadership means that you are the architect, for instance, Ed Markey in the Green New Deal. You are the architect of the innovation in taking initiative on things. It's not just sitting back and voting. I think that that's what we've done. We've become complacent to the point where the Democratic Party is always on its heels. They don't have solutions. They may cast that vote, but what is the future? The future goes to everything that I was just talking about, that progressive is practical, fighting for the things that we need, and actually fighting for the working and middle class.
Did you know that I was reading from Neil's website?
That was
an assumption.
I thought that might be ChatGPT, so no.
It's entirely possible these days, I
And
suppose.
the other thing I'm going to point out too, if you go on our website, we have our entire platform there.
I saw
It's
that.
long.
Yeah.
It's very long. I think it's the longest that I've ever seen for a candidate ever, because it's important for that transparency. You can't just one day say that you're fighting against ICE, like the direct mailer that he sent out,
Right.
and last year in June, praise ICE for their duties.
Thanking them.
The shape-shifting happens, especially around an election. And we're always consistent in our messaging. And it's also something where if you disagree, I'm going to still listen because I want your perspective. I want to understand things that I may incorporate into my own perspective and my own legislative initiatives.
You're saying this is your approach?
My
not
approach,
his
yeah.
approach.
Lay it out on the table. Take the time to listen. Take the time to educate individuals. And stand by your convictions. Don't just keep on shape-shifting because of the times or the campaign or the election cycle.
Do you think people would be reluctant to lose Richie Neal's impact in Congress? You know, you hear all the time, Richie brings home the bacon. Is that not true?
We went through the last 5 years of community project funding. Why is that important? Right now, Richard Neal is going around the district and planting all of these, I gave money to here, I gave money to here. We look back through those community project funds that he's on his little road trip on right now. Of the past 5 years, we rank 5th out of the 9 congressional representatives. We rank below average for bringing in community project funds. But why has that narrative been cemented? It's because we're in a smaller media market that doesn't necessarily have the resources to scrutinize what is going on, both in terms of what he's bringing in and in terms of donations coming into his campaign and expenditures coming into his campaign. And the other part of that is the tenure on the House Ways and Means. Can you name me anything that we've gotten?
That Massachusetts has
Yeah,
gotten?
to Western Mass. Berkshire's.
I heard him recite several accomplishments yesterday in his town hall teleconference, whatever it was.
What he does is he takes credit for taxpayer dollars
Right.
that have been lessened and lessened over time. And that is, the community project funds that we're talking about are municipal applications that are submitted. And it's taxpayer dollars. That is not his money. And so to go around and say that he is the one that secured it and he is the one that has championed it, it's false. That is the narrative that he wants. The other part that we were talking about too is the tenure on the House Ways and Means. I ask that question all the time because there is, the follow-up is really important because when you start to drill down to specific examples, they aren't there. We often hear, for instance, West East Rail. You can't take a train from Boston to Springfield. And we've been talking about it since I was in diapers. Having that leadership means a couple of things. One, he's abused it. His own son receives thousands of dollars a month and has lobbied before the House Ways and Means Committee. In 2019, he presided over a birthday party for AIG Insurance inside the House Ways and Means chambers. AIG Insurance, for those that are not familiar, was one of the biggest culprits in the 2008 financial crisis. He's blowing out birthday candles, and Centennial Smash was the drink of choice there. So he's drinking and blowing out birthday candles inside the House Ways and Means chambers. Do you think he would go to your birthday party? I don't think so. So there is that perceived power is non-existent. We do not bring in any more money, and we have an absentee congressman who quite literally doesn't show up. He just started his campaign over the past month. We have been out there since last September. And what I found was I developed all the relationships with everybody. I was thinking that I was going to walk into Springfield or Holyoke or some of these larger metropolitan areas, and I would get a cold shoulder. In fact, quite the opposite happened. He's just not there. You cannot contact him. There's gatekeeping that's involved in that. The individuals that are working on the select boards and even planning committees, I have all these relationships with people because that's what people are craving, and that's connecting the municipal, state, and federal level. So what is power? What is connections? What are relationships there? To me, it is relational. To him, it's transactional.
Define those two terms.
On the relational side, I'm going to be meeting with some city councilors right in North Adams. I talk to them very frequently. What issues, concerns are going on? How can you plug in some of the federal initiatives, or at least connect individuals throughout the frameworks of the district? Transactional is, if you don't do this, I'm not going to give you money. Well, there's no money. We've already gone over it. There's no real money to be holding over people's heads. It's a perception. But that right there is a hostage situation. That is not working meaningfully with your cities and towns. That is, do what I say or else. And that's the environment of fear that has been bred into this entire system.
That's what you mean by transactional.
Transactional, yeah.
Environment of fear, okay. I wanted to ask you what you thought about the claims that the Democratic Party has failed, essentially. What does that mean to you?
In many ways it has. A failure to address a 34-count convicted felon who slipped through the cracks and who came down an escalator calling Mexicans rapists, and you allow that to not only become president, but then a second term while talking about revenge and retribution. We're at historic low approval ratings of Congress, but even more so, we're at the historic low approval ratings of the Democratic Party. Because like I said, we do not have answers. And insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. We've done the same thing for 37 years in Massachusetts District 1. And where has it gotten us? 20 to 40% health insurance increases in premiums in 1 year. I was just in Springfield yesterday. My friend Liz Ogilvy is on a hunger strike right now because of food insecurity. What she calls food poverty is such a prevalent thing. 40% of Massachusetts households right now are some shade of food insecure. I mean, we're in dire straits right now, and we need answers. And I don't think that that comes from the establishment. I think that that comes from individuals that have the courage in leadership to say we need a new generation that is going to solve these problems. And I think that that's where I fit in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party needs a rehaul. It needs a rebranding, and that's what we're doing really well.
Rebranding is what we're doing really well, you think? I just wonder why you didn't run as an independent. What is it about the Democratic Party that attracts
I've
you?
always voted Democrat. Sometimes I found myself unenrolled, to be honest. A lot of individuals, 64% of Massachusetts is unenrolled, because they're jaded. They're jaded with a two-party system. I'm not a fan of a two-party system. Ideally, we would have more choices. Right. The fact of the matter is, historically, we have a two-party system, and the infrastructure exists there that precludes often a independent. Nadia Miller is running as an independent. She's doing a great job. The infrastructure that is there on both the local, state, and national level exists where I, as an individual that has solely voted as a Democrat, I want to change that party from within. Other individuals can change it from outside, but I think that the individuals that I most liken myself to, the Bernie Sanderses of the world, the AOCs, they need help. They need to consolidate and move in that same direction. And to fracture that right now, I think that we can get there, we can get into a good place, and then we can have discussions about a future of a two-party or multi-party system. But fact of it is, the pragmatic situation that is unfolding right now, I've always voted Democrat. I'm looking at a party that's alienating individuals like myself, and I want to shift all those individuals back to the right side of history.
No small task.
No small
Jeremy.
task. No small task.
All right. Interesting. I knew that getting involved in the conversation with you would not be easy.
Oh yeah, nothing's ever sleepy for me.
Nothing's ever sleepy. All right. Well, that probably is as good a point as ever for me to shut up and stop asking you questions. But we have a couple of minutes left, if the monitor is correct, and I wondered if you had a final comment you wanted to make.
I think people are understanding what we're doing. I think that people understand that it's time. I think that a high school teacher for the last 11 years in other situations and renditions of where the country was at may be seen as off-putting or inexperienced or the old adages that fall within a political career framework. Mm-hmm. But I think that those days are over. And we're at an inflection point in American history where we're needing answers. And I'm just really thankful for the time in which I've done this, the way in which we've done this on integrity, not taking corporate PAC money, but also developing and building the community that it takes to do this in a really true grassroots fashion. I feel really confident. And I think that when your heart is in it for the right reason, when you're there with the people embedded in the actual communities, that speaks volumes, and that's what's going to win us the election on September 1st.
Well, we're going to hold you to that.
Yeah, and I'll be back right here sitting in the chair with you.
You'd be welcome back if that happens.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jeremy, and thank you all for watching and listening to us. There's a lot of material we just covered, or this gentleman just covered. You might want to rewind and listen to it again and take notes. So thank you, Jeremy. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Wayne.
And maybe I'll see you here again a couple of weeks before November 3rd.
Yep, absolutely. I'll be in my little yellow van, putting on up.
Great. Thanks again. Thank you all for watching.